Welcome to the Following Films podcast. I'm your host, Chris Maynard. Today we're diving into a massive double feature cinematic event, releasing simultaneously on digital today, February 20th, our 1 Mile Chapter 1 and 1 Mile Chapter 2. This is a unique two-part saga from director Adam Davidson that prioritizes grit and tension, designed to be experienced as a complete journey. In Chapter 1, Phillippe stars as a former Special Forces operative, attempting to reconnect with his teenage daughter during a college road trip, when an unexpected detour puts them in the sights of a secretive, off-the-grid community. The trip devolves into a desperate fight for survival. The narrative deepens in Chapter 2 as he's forced back to a remote island where that same violent community abducts his daughter in an act of revenge. It's a relentless hunt where the emotional stakes are just as heavy as the physical ones. Today we have two vital perspectives on how these character-driven thrillers came to life. First up is C. Thomas Howell. The legendary actor joins me to discuss his roles in the films. We talk about the complexities of his character and what it's like stepping into a world where the villains believe they're the heroes of their own story. Following that, I'm joined by the director himself. Adam breaks down the process of filming two features back-to-back and how he maintained the grounded, character-focused tone across both chapters. First up, my interview with C. Thomas Howell. Hope you enjoy the show. Hey, C. Thomas, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your afternoon to do this. I appreciate it.
Pleasure, man. Thank you.
Well, I was so floored by the film, and a lot of that has to do with your performance in it, because you play an absolutely vile character, and you manage to inject even the slightest amount of humanity in him. And I think, and it's something that you feel like there's a moral center to this character, even if that center is completely out of whack. I feel like in his mind, he's not the villain in this piece.
I feel like you just sat through 3 of my other interviews. That's what I've been telling people. That's what attracted me to this role. You know, it's rare that you can read something that, it's one thing to play the heavy or to play a bad guy. And generally there's some sort of social disconnect and some psycho kind of homicidal evilness that goes with that. But
right.
Playing a bad guy that's not a bad person was really interesting to me. And it was my goal to find the places to inject humanity into Stanley, because he's really a leader of a culture that is trying to survive off grid. And he bears a large responsibility of sustaining a large group of people that is on the brink of extinction, and he's willing to do whatever it takes to help them survive. And when you're talking about survival, you'll do whatever it takes to make that happen. And I think that's just a gut instinct for all humans. And I found that to be really interesting when it came across my desk. I understood the assignment, as they say.
Yeah.
Really appreciated some of the lessons I learned from somebody like Rutger Hauer on The Hitcher, when I asked him as a naive teenager what his secret was to playing bad guys. And he slowly took a long drag off his cigarette and leaned in and said, "I don't play bad guys," which really kind of screwed me up for a while. I didn't understand that for a long time, until 25 years later, I was offered the role of the Reaper in Criminal Minds.
Yeah.
I was old enough to reflect on that moment with Rutger, and I realized the brilliance behind all of his performances by playing somebody who was capable of cutting your heart out. But while he was doing that, he would feel empathy and pain and sorrow and love and all these other things other than just being evil. And when you're able to apply that to a character or to a bad guy, then that becomes genuinely scary. And I think people, it's like watching a train wreck. They won't turn away from that. But the second I see a bad guy running through a hail of bullets laughing because he knows he doesn't die until page 90, it turns me off, and I'm not interested in that anymore. So it was a lesson I learned a long time ago that I didn't understand for 25 years, but very grateful for that moment with Rutger from The Hitcher.
Well, it's those are the best lessons. Those things that are seeded early in your life, and then you come back to them 20, 30, 40 years later, and you go, man, it was all there the whole time, right in front of me.
It has value then too.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and with The Hitcher, it was something I thought about almost right away, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but I only thought about bringing it up because it actually popped up in an article I was reading today, where it just happened to be 10 movies that were initially dismissed by Ebert that you should revisit, and that was one of them in there.
Hey, Roger Ebert hated The Hitcher.
He was wrong. He was wrong.
Absolutely hated it, and said some really crazy things about it. But I don't quite understand why it had affected him that way, because I watched that movie recently and it still holds up, man. I
could not agree more.
It's a well-made movie, well written, well performed, well shot. Our DP went on to his next film, Witness, and won the Academy Award.
Exactly.
I mean, we had technicians that were brilliant. What a stunt team. We didn't have CGI back then. It was all real. So, working with award-nominated and award-winning actors like Jeffrey DeMunn and Jennifer Jason Leigh, and of course, is something for me that was really special and meant a lot. And when I can reflect upon that experience and apply it to something like, chapter 1 and chapter 2. I'm sorry. Yes. Hi, come in. Sorry, I'm working right now. Oh, sorry. Can you come back? Yeah. Thank you. I'm so sorry, brother.
You're fine.
So that's the beauty of what I try to do is take the lessons that I can learn from the masters, put them in my pocket. I don't know when I'm going to pull them back out, but as we just discussed, Rutger planted a beautiful seed for me to learn from years later.
But now you're one of those people that has that just body of work behind them, that I'm sure that when you're working with younger actors, that they'll come to you and say, okay, this is one of the masters. This is one of those people that has done, as you said, understands the assignment, who can do really whatever's put in front of them. How do you do that and maintain a career for, there's a little bit of an age gap where it's almost like you would have been in high school, like just a few years before me, and you would have been that kid that graduated that we always talked about ahead. So I was always in the shadow of your films where you were just, from very early on, it was, The Hitcher hit me at that exact age. I think I was like 12 when I saw that, or like, and wow. it just like, it was, then Gettysburg comes along and all these other films. And I kind of grew up with you in a way where my taste changed and your taste changed. And then seeing you come to the other side of that role now in your career, it's just been fascinating to watch. And I'm sure there's younger actors that when they work with you, they have that same regard that you have for Rutger. I have
to tell you, going from always being the youngest on the set to now being one of the oldest is a big leap. And along with that comes a big responsibility. And, I try to teach through example. There are three things that I share with young actors, and that's to show up on time, be prepared, and make those around you better. And if you can do that, you will work all the time. And it's not really difficult. It's you'd be amazed at how many actors show up late with a Starbucks cup in their hand and they're not prepared and they don't even know what they're doing. And it really rubs me the wrong way when I experience that. There's 90 other people on the set that showed up on time, ready to go to work, that know what they're doing. And I think, especially when you're one of the leads of whatever project, a TV show, a film, you have a big responsibility of setting that example. It's something I take very seriously, and it's not something that I preach to younger people, but I do it by preparation, rehearsal, and being ready to go.
Well, I think you nailed it. You make them look good, and it can be a totally selfish act. They make you look good when you make them look good.
It
You know,
works hand in hand, doesn't it?
because you can, if you have a scene partner that's not carrying their weight, you're both going to look bad. That's just how that
So
works.
true and so disappointing. And really, that's when you go home the most broken as an
Yeah.
artist, when you're prepared and you're really ready to go to work, but your dance partner doesn't know the steps. It renders you helpless. There's nothing you can do except stand on your mark and just try to get through it. And it's unfair, but it happens a lot.
Well, in mile one, it's such a chapter one and two. You don't see that. I don't detect an ounce of cynicism in the film as far as in the everyone's heart feels like they were in this project. And I feel that you can feel that this was made with love and care, as dark as this is. And it has cynical elements in the plot and in the story, but I think that this is a movie that was told with love.
We had great performers, a
Yeah.
wonderful director. I really respect Ryan Phillippe and his approach to the work. And this newcomer, Amélie Hoeferle, is a wonderful young actor, and she's going to have a great career ahead of her. And it's beautiful when everybody wants to be there and
Yeah.
has talent, because then the sparks can fly and gifts and treasures abound, and you go home not going, well, that went exactly how I thought it would go, but you go home going, wow, I never expected that. That was beautiful. And those discoveries are what make that's what makes it all worth it. When you go home and you're happier than you thought you could be.
And I think that does come through. There's a lot of things you can't detect in a film, but you can feel that. It's an intangible that you can't point to an exact moment, and it's just that you can absolutely feel when that passion is there. But I know we're over time at this point, so I could talk to you about this all day, man. And thank you so much for taking the time to do this.
It was wonderful speaking with you, and I hope our paths cross down the road, my friend.
Dude, I hope so too, man. I hope so too. So it was fine. It was finally great to meet that upperclassman. So thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye bye. How are you today?
Nice to meet you. I like on your site how you talked about the power of stories.
Oh, well, thank you very much. You did a little bit of research ahead of time and decided to still join. I appreciate that.
Only because I wanted to see what would be behind you.
Oh, well,
Your Zoom.
Exactly.
Look at that. Are those all DVDs?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I get frustrated when there's something that I want to watch and I'm not able to see it.
Yeah.
But I walk past and I see the little name of it and I see the title and it gives me that emotional charge, that thing that I felt 25 years ago. So I'm not sure if you have a similar experience with film titles.
No,
or not.
I do. And although my wife made me, she's like, this is all online. You got to get rid of some of these. So I did. But but the record collection she lets me keep. So that's good. The vinyl.
That's I could get into that also. I have a ton of vinyl, so there is a point where it takes up a lot of room. I have to keep at certain levels because the vinyl would take up an entire house if I let it.
Have to say there is a certain kind of satisfaction holding this thing as a tactile element. I wanted to do. I was on a meeting for some things and I hadn't seen Bound for Glory in a long time, and I was like, oh, let me rewatch this, and I couldn't find it. It's not streaming. It was only available on DVD, and there was only a few copies, that I could find. So I was so grateful to get a hold of this, and
And
it looked great.
that's the thing. That's what's so strange, because I think that would just be one that would be readily available,
right? Yeah.
It's available on DVD. That's a Oscar nominated film, and it's getting increasingly difficult to find that movie for some reason. So.
And it won Oscars too. Haskell won for cinematography. That was the first film to.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah.
That was the first film to incorporate the Steadicam.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. That was the first theatrical film to use Steadicam.
I thought Rocky for some reason.
Haskell had to pitch it to Hal Ashby. Can I say there's this new device? And then Hal Ashby was like, yeah, I guess so. Let's try it. Let's try it. Why not? There's a slight delay
Man,
on your.
I know
There's a slight delay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm kind of picking up on that.
Yeah.
Let me see if I'm going to turn off my camera and see if that helps with that.
Okay.
Okay. Does that help at all? Are you able to hear me okay?
Yeah. So far, so good.
Okay. All right. I'm sorry about that. So with 1 Mile, the thing that I was struck by with this was how much time you're able to spend on the character side of things, which I really appreciated, because a lot of genre films like this would only allow for a brief moment, or they would tip their hat slightly to the character work. Here you actually, for lack of a better word, you get to luxuriate in the characters for a lot longer than you would in a genre film. So is that part of the reason why you decided to do this as 2 chapters or 2 films?
You won the grand prize. Ding, ding. Yes. Absolutely. You know, I feel that, like, I think it's changing, but I think there was at a time, certain resistance from directors of going away from genre. And I think what's kind of turned a little bit, and for both directors and producers, is this idea that, like, no, genre is what we hang our hat on, but let's also tell another story as well. And that's what attracted me, was that I read the script. It was only for the first movie at the time. And I immediately loved that we had this genre, a thriller, but it wasn't, it could still be grounded thriller. It didn't have to be like, super VFX driven or have a larger than life character. It could be real characters, but so you had this thriller element, but it was telling first and foremost. And the way I kind of approached it in my meeting was, what I'm interested in is the father-daughter story. I'm a father of 3 daughters, and I love this story of 2 estranged people who it could go either way with them in terms of their relationship. It could either be salvaged and saved and become something new, or it was just going to dissipate into these 2 people who were never going to move forward from their hurt feelings of being apart. And neither one's at fault, right? This is all natural. Everyone can relate to this. But yeah, thank you so much for pointing that out. I do think there is that time, and I don't think it drags the movie. I think it embellishes the movie. I think it makes it a more full experience because of that.
I couldn't agree with you more. It absolutely does add to the depth of the story, and you actually care a lot more when the characters are in peril, obviously.
Right.
But you could literally remove the genre elements from this, and the films are essentially about a father trying to reconnect with his daughter because he spends too much time at work.
That's right.
Yeah, that's a story I think everybody. I'm a dad. I'm 50, and I 100% have those fears and doubts in myself as a parent.
The cat's in the cradle in the soup.
Yeah, as he said, that's a scary song.
when we first started shooting, like 4 days in, Paramount wanted to see like some stuff right away, and one of the producers, Michael Lohman, and I were talking. I was like, you just can't send them the footage, right? You got to help them along. So we decided, like, let's, as crazy as it is, we got enough work to do, but let's do a little bit of a trailer. And Michael put Cats in the Cradle with it. It actually worked great as a trailer.
Well, I mean, it is silly, of course, but it is thematically 100% on point with what this is about. But you could absolutely have somebody that was just looking for a thriller, and they'll absolutely be entertained by this. But if you're looking for somebody that wants something that's more of a character piece and wants to watch actors doing really good work, you would enjoy this as well. There's not many thrillers like this that I could watch with my wife, my 15-year-old son, I could watch this with my mom. I would have no problem watching this with anyone, really.
That warms my heart. That's what myself and the other producers, and Ryan being one of them too, we were all hoping for and going for, so thank you for that.
Well, could you talk a little bit about the casting of this? Because really, again, with characters being at the center of this, if you don't have the casting right, the father and daughter relationship has to work, or the film doesn't work.
Yeah. So casting wise, it was unusual in the sense that, and I'll just take a little detour if you don't mind to
No,
just
please.
genesis of the project, because it started as a father-daughter project. Its origins were that Aaron Kaplan, the producer, and his daughter, his eldest daughter, Jaden Kaplan, were back east, looking at schools, looking at colleges. She was at the end of high school, and they went from Boston up into the New Hampshire backwoods to go look at Dartmouth. And along the way, they're driving. It's like getting dark out, and it's dark and it's scary, and there's just every once in a while a creepy looking house. And Jaden says, "Oh, this is creepy here. I'm not sure about this." He's like, "Imagine if the car broke down." And Aaron, being the great producer that he is, said, "Keep going." And they kind of pitched out this idea, and he went to Ryan, who was doing a show for him called Shooter, and I worked on that show as well, and knew Ryan for a little bit from before. He'd helped me out on a way back on a reading, and we had gone along, but he pitched this idea to Ryan, and I think it resonated for Ryan too. He's a father of daughters, so has a daughter. So that's where it initially got developed. And then, for Ryan and I, both spoken and unspoken, we both knew like casting this daughter was essential, who she was as an actor, but also as a human being, because we wanted it to feel really real. We didn't want a petulant, pouty teen. We wanted somebody who felt like a three-dimensional person, and that you also had empathy for. And I'm sure you're not surprised, because this story happens all the time with movies, but she was a last minute casting, finding Amélie. We met a lot of people, and all great and all talented, but there's the quality that we were looking for that is a little bit something you can't quite put your finger on. It's just a feeling. It's a believability. It's an unspoken thing. It's something you can't overanalyze in the moment. It's got to be there, and then maybe you can think about it. But Amélie, we were kind of going down the road, and we needed to pull. We were getting so close. We needed to pull the trigger, and I threw a Hail Mary pass and said, let's just meet a couple more people, and I found Amélie. She came recommended from somebody who had worked with her, and I looked at her film, which there wasn't much, but there was something there that was interesting. And at the time I was shooting something else, so we had to meet on a weekend. She was in Germany at the time, and we did a Zoom, and I like to act out the scenes with the actor, and just do a one-on-one and
Sure.
kind of see, throw little things here and there and see what their spontaneity is like and their ability to kind of stay in the moment. And she just had something, and I had recorded it and sent it to Ryan. I said, take a look, tell me what you think. I didn't oversell or anything. I just said, what do you think? And he immediately responded the same way I did. So, and she was great. She was always truthful. And funny enough, it wasn't until she came out to Canada, where we were filming, she's got this backstory of wanting to go to art school, and she and learn art and be an artist.
Yeah.
I always like to get the actors involved in everything, costume choices, prop choices, everything, because it's an extension of who they are and their character. So I brought over some art to Amélie to say, hey, I want to try to figure out like what kind of work she might have been doing in high school. And she said, oh, I might have some things too. I said, what? She's like, yeah, I actually had gotten into art school, and I went for a year. So that art you see in the movie is her own.
Oh my God, that's actually her stuff. She's including the one of the landscape that she does in part 2. Is that her also?
No, that is not hers.
Okay. I was going to say, that's incredible.
It probably could have been, but there just wasn't time. But yeah.
It's a beautiful piece, by the way. I really
It is, right?
like that one.
Yeah. And I liked how everything kind of came together. We've been talking about how, I had this idea to set the second movie at a mill. Once we made the decision to go up to Canada, I just thought that'd be interesting to see what this community, where they live and what brought them there, but also for storytelling purposes, right? Whenever you have a story of people trying to get somewhere or get away from something, it's great to have something iconic architecturally, whatever that is. So the audience knows where they are in relation to that. And so they had that mill, and then Mark White, the production designer, I think he was looking for local artists, and he just took different pictures from our location. And one of the artists saw that tower, and that's how he chose that piece.
If I were the one creating the Blu-ray cover for this, that's what the image that I would choose for the personally.
I like that, and I'm going to pass that along. I'll give you credit.
No. Don't need credit. I just want to have that on my shelf. That's all. So, but I know we're at time, and I feel like we barely scratched the surface here, Adam.
I can go a little longer. It's really up to you.
Yeah. The thing that I was really also, I think that we need to mention is as far as casting, C. Thomas Howell, because having him at the other end of this is so crucial, because he brings a humanity to an evil character, a horrible character, but there is a sense of a moral compass within him that I think is really important for it's not mustache twirling.
I'm so grateful for you to say that, and I'm so grateful for C. Thomas Howell, and grateful to the casting people and Aaron for recommending him and getting him on. We didn't really get a chance to talk until after he was on board, and he was on his way. He lives in Texas now, and he was on his way from where he lives in Texas to Taylor Sheridan's ranch to go work on one of his shows. And it was like a 6-hour drive, and I think we spent almost 6 hours of it talking. And right away I knew, like, this guy is really thinking about everything. And yes, that was important to us to make this. And that was from the get-go. What is the motivation behind what these people are doing? Who is this guy? How do we make him a full character? And even though obviously, don't agree with what he's doing, at least understand it in some way. And I really appreciate that we took the time to do that. I feel like that's one of those things that it used to be, I think, more popular or more something you would see in movies, some like those DVDs behind you. And it got less and less so. And because of that, I think the movies to me don't become as interesting. I think this making your as you call them, your adversary, a fully rounded character just ups the ante on the storytelling and the investment in the characters on the film, right?
Well, there's you can have a fully realized character, or you can have something that's on the other side of that, where it's Halloween. The first one, it works because it is an entity that just seems unstoppable for no apparent reason. There's no motivation, no story. And I think they took the wrong lesson from that film, and they've copied it, and it's a Xerox of a Xerox of a Xerox at this point, and we lost what made that magic. So I think you can do both, but there's a different power in that. And you're right, it was commonplace at one point in time, and now we've moved so far away from it that this feels very unique and original, even though this is just in a lot of ways a throwback to how a thriller would have been done, in the 70s, perhaps.
Yep, that's right. Well said.
Well, I know that this is a film that is coming out in 2 parts, and so I don't want to get into specifics. It's kind of hard to talk about one film without. I feel like it's a film in my mind. I watch them back to back, so it does feel like a singular experience. But it does work as taking a break, coming to this a month later. How are you talking about this, or how are you explaining it without giving away part 2 in the film?
Well, I'm a novice at it too, because we didn't know until fairly recently what the release strategy was going to be. because there was a lot of talk going both ways. And so what was agreed upon was this idea, like, let's treat them, even though we're going to shoot them together, let's treat them as their own separate standalone movies. I think, it's really up to audiences and how they want to experience it. So to me, they are two separate stories. There is a time jump. They're similar, but they're different. They're exploring different themes, and the shift. There's a shift, in emphasis.
Yeah.
So,
well, the father-daughter dynamic is wildly different in the second one than in the first one, and the antagonist moves more into the spotlight in the second one and moves out of the shadow. So it just becomes, it really does add a lot of color to the first film.
Let me ask you this. Let me put the question back to you. What would you say to audiences? Would you recommend watching them back to back, or taking a break, or?
To me, it's impossible for me to divorce myself from the experience of what I did with it. I didn't feel like I needed a break in between the two. I personally would almost just cut these two together, and it's a 3-hour movie, and I'm all on board for that. Or it could even, I guess there's an argument to be made. You could have this as 3-hour-long pieces, I guess, in a way where you could have the structure of it change completely. But I personally think that this is a film that feels, while it is two complete stories that do stand on their own. And in fact, I think you could watch chapter 2 without having watched chapter 1, but it's going to be a lesser experience if you do that. I think that either the two films, they enrich the other. So I think it's, a prerequisite. You got to watch part 1 first. And so, and if you're on board because you're going to VOD and you watch this, you're going to want to watch part 2. So it might be something you do immediately. You might do it the next night. And either way, I think you're in for a good time.
I think it'll be interesting, to see, what happens. Like, what do audiences do? I'm sure they'll run all those numbers and figure maybe it's going to start a trend. I'm excited. I'm excited for this experiment. Having worked in movies, having done TV, and doing longer series, I think and hope that there's an appetite for this shorter format. I don't know about you, but sometimes I love series, but sometimes it's hard to commit to 8-10 episodes,
Every time when somebody says you have to get 3 or 4 episodes in and then it starts to reveal what it is. So you're saying there's 2 movies out there that I'm going to not watch because I'm going to devote that much time to just getting into a story. And maybe that is a richer experience for some. And it's like the first 100 pages of a novel before the novel reveals itself. There is something to that form of storytelling, but they could literally stop making movies today and I wouldn't have enough time to watch all the things I haven't seen that I want to see. So I'm just a movie guy. It's tough for me to get away from that. And I do love series. There's a lot of shows out there that I absolutely adore, but I'll always be a movie guy.
Yeah. So, I'm grateful for this opportunity. And they didn't make it easy, right? We had to do a really low budget and we had to be inventive and come up with stuff, but let's see what happens.
Well, that was one thing that I clocked right away in this was that I couldn't tell what the budget was for this. I made assumptions in my mind about what it may have been. Yeah. But then I'm looking at it and it's like, how much of the scenery is doing the heavy lifting here, and how much of this, the action looks really good. The cinematography looks beautiful, but you shoot a lot of the stuff in the daytime, which I appreciate. Thrillers that are shot in the day, I think that's a really smart way of doing it. It makes it scarier to me when it's right in broad daylight.
That's great.
But you're also, this Canadian landscape that you're shooting in is gorgeous. So it gives it value to that. So I was looking, I don't know if this was $5 million or $50 million. I have no clue. Can't tell. So
I'll send you a secret message.
Well, I mean, I do.
It was not, I'll tell you, it was not 50.
Okay. I assumed as much. As much, probably in between somewhere. In that range,
it was, both movies. I'd say, am I allowed to say this, Kier? Was there any,
maybe just be broad about it. Don't give a exact number.
How broad? Both your numbers are high.
Large range.
Both your numbers are high, my friend.
That's shocking. That's very, very surprising. But again,
I'll tell you one thing I kept thinking to myself when I was making these films was like, thank God I used to run around in my backyard when I was 13 years old with a Super 8 camera, because I am using every trick I ever did.
well, that was actually something I wanted to ask you. Your experience in episodic television probably does help with working with a small budget feature, especially doing back-to-back features, that you're able to keep a schedule pretty tight, because I'm assuming you didn't have all the months in the world to shoot this thing.
No, we didn't. We shot this is a very, very tight schedule. I do think, when I made the conscious decision, I was living in New York, I'd gone to film school. My heroes were, among many others. So, I had my European hero filmmaker.
Sure.
I had my East Coast New York filmmakers. And then, of course, I think like old school Hollywood guys, like the William Wylers, the John Fords and all that. And, but everybody, right, you come out of film school in New York, you're like, okay, I'm going to make my indie. Well, what I was not prepared for was like how long it takes to get some of those projects off the ground. And at some point I was like, how can I call myself a director? I'm not directing. I'm just doing meetings after meetings, right? You're like, okay, you got the project. And then it's like, okay, well, now we need to get the money. And the money's like, well, get the star. And then you get the star, but then the money falls through. So then you go after the money and you lose the star. It just was endless. And an opportunity came up to direct TV, which at the time I was like, I'm not sure. But it was intriguing to me that, like, first of all, I like the actors, and second of all, it was like, wait a minute. So you mean I'm going to do a week of prep or so, then I'm going to shoot this, and then a few weeks after that, millions of people are going to watch it, and I kind of shifted after doing it. And also, I think what shifted just in terms of the landscape of TV, which we now are all, and we just talked about it, right? It shifted between like, doing something that was very like formal and, just get the coverage to like, they're little movies, right? Lost, Game of Thrones, they're all like epic adventures. I shifted my thinking into like, well, as much as I love the Jarmushes and the Spike Lees, there is something to those directors from the 40s and 50s, the Wylers, the Fords, the Howard Hawks, that they would make 3 pictures a year, right?
Yeah.
And one would be a war movie, and one would be a comedy, and one would be a gangster film. And I was like, that's really my love. I love storytelling. I love all genres. I and especially if there's something to say in them, like that sounds like fun and exciting to me. So then I just shifted and I said, let me see where TV can go. And I always saw it as this is experience. This is something that I can learn from each time. Each show is something different. It's never the same. At least, look, there's so many different kinds of directors out there. Everyone's going to approach it differently. I never wanted to be on a show for very long. I wanted to kind of do that show and then move to another show. Just like, okay, what's going to be the next challenge? But I always felt like this is like, this is just a continuation of grad school. You probably weren't, you're too young, but when Kurosawa won his Lifetime Achievement Award.
Of course, yeah.
Okay, you remember what he said?
I don't remember. Was that when he said something about giving up on films or something along those lines? I can't remember exactly what he said.
He might have said something like that, but what I remember is standing up there winning the Lifetime Oscar and saying, I don't deserve this. There's still so much of cinema I don't understand, and I'm still learning. And he was 89 or whatever. And I just thought, yes, that's true. We can always, like, there's something new. We're constantly creating. Like, let's go to something fresh. Let's do something challenging. And so I do think, like, for me, there was no other way. Like, having been on a set and had so many different experiences of making a day or making a schedule or shooting a certain kind of scene or whatever. It wasn't that I was drawing from particular experiences, but I did know that, like, okay, we're going to get it done somehow. Like, okay, nobody expected this rainstorm. We'll figure it out. Nobody, this is happening. All right, it's okay. We're going to embrace what's happening, and we're just going to move forward. And thankfully, that cast was always up for that, and you couldn't have made it without that situation. But we also knew going in, like, hey, every day is going to be different. This is not going to be something where we're going to have a perfect situation. What's perfect is the unknown. Here, I love quoting. There's a favorite quote I like to say to my actors, and I share it with other people too, which is a kind of philosophy, I think, to going into a movie like this, which is Miles Davis. Do you know what Miles Davis used to tell his session men before they would record an album?
No idea.
He would call them up the night before and tell them to be prepared to be unprepared.
Yeah.
And I think, like, you can't make jazz any good if you're over rehearsed, if you're over thought out, if you're over planned. There needs to be some spontaneity, something that happens that nobody expects. And I think, hopefully, what you picked up on in the film was this sense of, like, something truthful and something happening and something feeling real. Like, that had to be because it was not overdone. It wasn't cooked. It wasn't planned. It was just happening.
Oh, you can absolutely over edit. You can overthink. You can overact, over prepare.
Yeah.
To the point that you're not present.
Yeah. That's right.
It's that thing that's so beautifully said from Miles Davis, because it is that you have to internalize it. You have to internalize the words and own them and make them your own. And that is part of letting go of the knowledge that you own and know those words. And that's such a tough thing to do, because acting, especially in film, can be so technical about where you need to move your body from one moment to another and all that. And it's why I'm a bad actor. And so the few times that I tried,
and the setting that you might have read where this scene is going to take place is now not exactly that.
Yeah.
No, it's not. You imagined a cave, but it's not the cave. It's this cave. It's that thing. We're on a hill. We're undercover. We're not undercover. It's just, But
none of those things are, generally speaking, about what the truth of that moment is. And so being able to speak to the truth of, you talk about, like, the cave moment, to me, one of the standout moments in chapter 1 is the embrace that they have, that quiet moment where he's, she's cold and he holds her while she sleeps and he just keeps watch in that moment. And that's really everything in that film built up to that moment. And that's the turning point in their relationship. And that you don't have that if you're not spending all the character time. You could have that moment, but if it was 10 minutes into the movie, it wouldn't have meant anything.
Yeah. Yeah. And that moment is earned because of everything that happens before,
Absolutely.
So at the moment of total peril and desperation and like you have no choice but to just be under this rock for a moment, it's also, I think, Danny's happiest moment in the last,
it is
hours, right?
It's it 100% is. Even if you look at that, even going into part 2, he's never comfortable again until maybe the very but it's that is the moment where he starts to feel at peace, I think. And it's just it's a really powerful film, and I highly recommend people check it out. I think that if they go in for chapter 1, they're going to want more. They're going to go back for part 2. So, and I hope that this experiment of yours catches on, because I think you're onto something here. I think this is a really fun way of doing a film, and you could do different genres in this way, and to have things that are executed this way, I think it's an interesting approach to it, and I love it. I love that there's still ways to do movies that I again, like to Kurosawa, that we weren't aware of, that you're just starting to learn right now. It's amazing.
Right. Thank you, man.
Dude, Adam, it was great to meet you, man. Thank you so much for taking the time to do this. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you for your following films. I appreciate you being out there.
Well, the greatest job I ever had was working at a video store. and I still just want to tell people about movies they might miss. So that's why I've kept it going for
Right.
the last 15
Thank you
years.
for that.
So thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. Great to meet you.